Some states have been experimenting with red flag laws, which enables law enforcement and the courts to temporarily either remove guns or block people from being able to purchase guns, individuals who have been adjudicated in some way from posing a threat to themselves or others. Is that something that you might support?
No, I don't trust government to deal with red flag laws. I don't trust that they won't take them away from people who rightfully deserve to have them, because you've got someone else judging whether someone should have a gun or not. It is a constitutional right that people can protect and defend themselves. What I want is the feds to do their job. What I want us is to take illegal guns off the street. What I want us to do is deal with mental health the way it deserves to be dealt with. And what I want is for us to have the backs of law enforcement so that they can do their jobs.
Now, if you've been following politics for some time, you might, from the beginning of that little clip of Nikki Haley to the end, already begin to suspect that there's a few issues with the multiple different things that she is claiming to believe there. So it is very easy for her to come out and say, no, I don't support red flag laws because I don't trust the government to decide who can have a gun and who can't. But bear in mind, that is a very broad statement. It's the sort of broad statement that you might come to regret far in the future. Like, for instance, 10 seconds later, when you're saying we need to take mental health seriously and we need to support the police. Okay, well, question, how are you gonna take those things seriously? How are you gonna support the police when, let's say, the police believe that someone is an imminent threat and their guns should be taken away? Damn, the government can't be trusted to take it away. Let's take mental health seriously. And do what exactly? Do a PSA? Because we know that we're not gonna be taking guns away from people who have serious mental health difficulties that might make them a threat to themselves and others, because that's what red flag laws are. So what you seem to want to do is, we're gonna say these things about mental health and cops, and then we're just gonna leave everyone on their own and hope that things work out okay, because I know that I'm supposed to claim that the government can't decide who gets a gun and who doesn't. First of all, why are we blocking 10-year-olds from having guns? Seems like that's the government choosing who can and can't have guns. Why are we banning people in prison from having guns? It seems like that's the government choosing who can and can't have guns. And you might say, well, obviously you're allowed to have some sort of common sense restrictions on who has guns. After all, the Second Amendment doesn't go as far as that. Well, then why exactly are the red flag laws long? The Second Amendment doesn't say anything about prisoners, and it also doesn't say anything about mental health problems or domestic abuse. So why is it that you can ban guns in the former case, but not in the latter case? Especially when we know how often domestic violence is a precursor to fatal gun violence inside of a home. So
Absolutely.
Again, there's no thought here because there's not supposed to be thought. She's not expressing actual beliefs, actual principles. She's saying what she thinks she's supposed to get a position in the Trump administration.
Yeah, and I think it's even worse than just doing nothing, right? I think there's something really implicit about saying we have to support our police and also take mental health so-called seriously. Now, when progressives hear mental health seriously, we think, yeah, expanding services and treatment, accessibility of meds, right? Like all these kinds of things. No. When they say cops and mental health, they mean lock them up. Just round them up and lock them up and throw away the key, and we don't have to think about people's mental health issues anymore. Ta-da, it's done. And sadly, a lot of folks, a lot of liberals also espouse similar beliefs, right? It's something that across the aisle, people are in agreement about the prison industrial complex. Amazing how that works. So, and the other thing about this is like how she can say this in terms of like the role of the government, red flag laws. It's not a random cop choosing, like based on, I don't know, that they didn't like the way you look, although they do that all the time, about who to take guns away from. It would be, let's say I am the victim of domestic violence, alerting folks to my husband, to my ex-husband, to a boyfriend, to, I realize I'm naming male roles mostly, but let's be honest. It is friends and family of people who could be violent and armed, and they don't have any recourse. So they're alerting the authorities. That's how red flag laws are getting implemented. It's not just the government deciding, opening a phone book and then just like, choosing.
100%. I want to follow that up in 1 second, but I want to get to just a little bit more of her on guns. And then I want to ask what should be a pretty basic question to Nikki Haley. And we'll try to speculate about what her answer could be, but let's go into this first.
We should make sure there's the clear bulletproof tape that we have at courthouses and airports. We should have that on our schools to protect them. And we should have a mental health counselor at every single school, not a guidance counselor, but a mental health counselor. Then we need to make sure that the feds actually vet properly. When I talked about the church shooting that we had, that murderer, when he went to go buy a gun, because the feds didn't do it in the time allotted, they gave him the gun anyway.
Okay, so going right past the bulletproof tape, I don't know what she's talking. It's some sort of metaphor or something. I honestly don't know what she's trying to say. But anyway, let's jump to the other stuff, because she says if I had been in charge, these shootings wouldn't have happened. The feds would vet people properly. And the church shooter, I'm honestly, I don't even know which church shooter she's referring to, because we have that many church shootings in America. So you're gonna need to be more specific, Nikki Haley, because the gun control status quo that you favor results in so many church shootings that I don't know what reference you're making. But let me follow up about what she said. The feds need to vet people better. Kind of sounds like you're saying the government should choose who gets a gun and who doesn't get a gun. Who exactly do you think the feds are? Do you know what Fed is short for? Yeah. Government is in it, actually. So why exactly would the feds be allowed to choose who gets a gun or not in the case of a background check, but not a red flag law check, which is just a later background check based on new information? She said that if the church shooter had been stopped, it wouldn't have happened. How dare they take away an American's gun rights? Because again, the Second Amendment doesn't say anything about whether you've made violent threats before. So I have a very simple question for Nikki Haley. If somebody says, I'm gonna shoot up my workplace next week, now I'm off to old Bob's gun shack, who are you to stop him? Why should anyone stop him from getting that gun? Because the Second Amendment doesn't say anything about posts on Twitter. It doesn't say anything about imminent threats. It says it shall not be infringed. And yet you obviously think it should be infringed in certain cases. So now all we're talking about is where the line is drawn. And we as a people get to decide that. And I would argue that most people do not agree with you on where that should be drawn.
You're absolutely right. I mean, you point out the hypocrisy and the circus that is the Republican Party on gun rights. Just, it so easily unravels. And again, John, if you were in Jake Tapper's position asking these questions and watch when the primaries roll out and there's the so-called debate. Again, the Republican Party is so far to the right of where the average American is. And we know that supports background checks and red flag laws and all of these common sense, a ban on assault rifles as well, all the common sense things. And so people in the audience, it's just, I don't know who we're doing this for anymore. Like, I seriously don't know. It is complete unreality to start the level, like to take anything that she's saying seriously.
100%. Well, because again, it is not designed to be taken seriously in the way that it's presented. It is presented by her and now by CNN as she is a serious candidate that is trying to win over voters so they will choose her instead of the other Republicans. That's crazy talk. That's not what she's trying to do at all. Let's just be clear about that. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.